So we'll call the meeting to order. It's the meeting of the Tenant Services Committee. I'm John Campbell, and I'll immediately ask for an approval of the public meeting agenda by a show of hands, actual hands. Uba, could you? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? All right, seeing none. The last meeting we had was March the 28th, 2023. Need a motion to approve the public meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Charlebois. All in favor? And moving on to item 5, we on the business arising from action items. We have a deputant. We have 2 deputants. And
I believe Ms. Wilkinson has asked to depute in relation to that matter, and that she's in the meeting. Ms. Wilkinson, can you turn on your camera? You have 5 minutes.
good morning, Catherine.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So here we are again. Welcome back. At least it's not raining. Yeah, so I did want to speak to the action item list, specifically to items 2 and 5. The meeting agenda that's on the website indicates item 5 is a briefing note, Republic action items 2 and 5, lobby safety. Now, the printed agenda, the one you have before you that I printed, does not itemize which items are being presented under the action item list. So it does not speak to action item number 2, which is the CCTV access for operational staff, which is an entirely separate issue from tenant access to the lobby camera. And the action item list indicates that this item, action item 2, is complete, and this is incorrect. As per the minutes of your meeting on page 4, the committee directed that action items 1 and 2 remain on the action item list. So action item 2 is still pending, outcome of an internal meeting. So until such time a report comes back to the committee with the outcome of those meetings. Therefore, action item 2 should remain on the action item list, and the status should be amended to reflect that the item is in progress. Now, speaking to action item number 5, discontinued access to CCTV lobby camera for tenants. Look, I actually agree and support the staff report that you got. I've done my own independent investigations directly with the CRTC and other organizations. And at the end of the day, Bell and Rogers have changed the way in which they provide their TV services. This was a business decision, and it's outside of our control. So the 2 ways that tenants use to identify visitors to a building for tenants who have the old cable services, they answer the phone, which has a distinct ring for the intercom, and then they may choose to look at the lobby channel on their TV, which has now been discontinued, to see who the visitor is, and then they will enter the intercom code, which opens the lobby door to permit access to the building. Losing access to the lobby channel is unfortunate, but there's no recourse and nothing we can do about that. However, as part of switching to the new Internet Protocol TV services, in addition to Rogers no longer providing lobby channel, Rogers also disconnects the tenant from the intercom system, as it was connected through their previous cable services. This is unacceptable. A tenant is not informed at the time of agreeing and signing up for this new service that they will lose their lobby channel and their intercom system upon installation. They find out their intercom system is not working when deliveries are missed or guests cannot reach them through the intercom. So when a tenant calls Rogers to ask them to reconnect their intercom system, they're told they no longer provide these services and they will have to go through their landlord. So this now makes it Toronto Community Housing's problem. Thousands of tenants subscribe to Rogers services, and they will all be required to switch to the new IP protocol over time, which is provided through a modem. This also means those tenants' intercom systems will automatically be disconnected. For those of you who may not be aware, Toronto Housing can provide tenants direct intercom access through their units. This can be done with or without a landline. And while Toronto Housing, has no control over which services are provided by these companies, they do have a responsibility to ensure their intercom systems are working. Toronto Housing needs to consider the best way to manage this significant change in service, either working with the providers or directly with tenants, and advise what the landlord will do should their intercom system be disconnected or not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none. We were anticipating another deputant, but he's not here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. So we will move to receive the items on the action item list, the business arising. Motion to receive that information. Debbie, thank you. All in favor? Okay, that is received. Next item are next items are held because I'd like to hold 6A and B, and then we have deputants for the rest. So we're now on the Chief Operating Officer reports. And the first item is the TCHC response to the OACH biannual report. Are there any questions of directors on that particular item? Okay, no. I just had a couple of sort of technical questions. How many, and this is me not knowing the sort of like the whole structure of TCHC, but how many regional managers do we have?
We have three, through the chair, we have 3 general managers, and then we have 3 regional managers that oversee tenancy management, 1 per region.
So we have three general managers and 3 regional managers. And then how many tenant service coordinators do we have?
We have approximately 150 tenant service coordinators.
150 TSC. So that's 50 per regional manager. Okay, that's a lot. And is part of the problem in the arrears process that tenant services coordinators, some of them may not be that versed on all of the steps that are necessary to be taken to bring a tenant to be able to pay or receive funds? So sort of an experience element to that?
Through the chair, I think that's part of it. I think we have a fairly robust arrears collection process that has multiple steps. And I think through the socializing of that arrears collection process, as well as training and onboarding of new staff, there is a clear gap, and OACH has identified that for us as well, where staff are not aware of the intimate steps of the process, which is leading to some of the challenges that we're having with compliance regarding the process with OACH.
And when we're looking at, let's say, call it, I don't want to, well, shortcomings is maybe a little bit too harsh a word, but if we're looking for places where there's problems with arrears, do we look at the numbers of arrears that fall under each general manager? Are they disproportionate, or are they equally distributed, or what can you tell me about that?
So through the chair, we do look at it on a regional basis. They're relatively equitable across the 3 regions. We do have some regions that have more advantageous months, and we're looking at best practices, but on a whole, it's approximately the same region over region.
Got it, okay. All right, thank you. And so the problem isn't necessarily that the regional managers aren't giving the proper direction to the TSCs. It's a problem of getting the processes very well known by all the TSCs.
Through the chair, I think what we've been identifying over the last year in conducting our lien reviews and working closely with the OCH office is that we need to update and amend the arrears collection process. It doesn't align with some of the challenges that we're seeing local staff face, and so we want to simplify the process and do a significant training over the next few months once the process is finalized so that we can get in compliance. But that's absolutely one of the challenges. Not only is there a gap around knowing the process, but we also think the process is flawed. I shouldn't say flawed, but I think more complicated than it needs to be, and so that's some of the areas of work that my team's undertaking now.
Great, okay. Any other questions from directors? Okay, so motion to approve this item. Receive this item. Marcel, all in favor? Thank you. Next, we have the TCHC operational performance measures. And are there questions of staff on this particular item 6B? Directors, any questions? All right, I have a question. No, I have an observation that I'd like to highlight, and that's the vacancy rate, which is shown as only 1.7%, which is really outstanding. I mean, I don't know is there a number at which you can do better? I don't know, I can't imagine doing any better than that because people are always in transition, right? So he's moving out or,
Through the chair, I'm happy to report that May was 1.51. So we're getting to as narrow a margin as we can get to, but the lowest we've hit so far was last month, which was 1.51%.
That's tremendous. And I also noticed that in the call center, the average answer speed improved by 6 minutes. And so how was that done? Is that adding more personnel? Is that, how exactly was that achieved?
So through the chair, we continue to experience challenges with staffing in the call center, and we've had some staff support through additional hours and overtime, and so we're really working with the current staff team that we have. I do want to thank the call center staff, and I'll ask Richard to comment further if there's additional comments, but we do have a really hard-working team that's working to address the issues. We're looking at some of the process issues in terms of answering calls. We've also been reviewing some of the scripts to ensure that we're responding in a more immediate fashion, but I'm happy to acknowledge the hard work of the call center staff. Richard, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
Just to add that the staff are much more comfortable with our new systems and processes, so the transition into the new home system was a steep learning curve for them in late 2022. There is a lot more speed to each of their interactions, the documentation, as well as we've gotten a lot of support from our human resources partners to fill vacancies in a timely manner and get people in the seats to answer the calls.
So it talks about a 6-minute improvement, which is huge, really, if you're on hold. I mean, we've all been on hold to our telecom provider, and we know what that's like. So what is the average? So what is the average call response time now?
I believe the call time is since reduced from this reporting period. I think it's down in around the five currently, and the target is to get it in around 90 seconds. That's ultimately the service level against that team. There is more work and efficiencies to be found in that team to achieve that.
Great, thank you. And then one other statistic, 198 units were being filled through the rapid rehousing referral agreements with agencies. So when that occurs, is that bypassing the wait list? Are these individuals that are not on the wait list but need urgent housing? How exactly does that work? Who are those people?
So through the chair, I can start and then Richard can jump in. So through the chair, the Rapid Rehousing Program is a partnership with TCHC in the city. And so we have a system that connects tenants directly through that list. It's separate and apart from the referral agreement process, which requires an agency to have a signed agreement with us that's approved by the service manager, at which point that agency has to administer their own waiting list. All tenants come from the centralized waiting list, but an agency agency might have a particular group of constituents that they're working with, that they pull through their waiting list, their own internal waiting list to the agency. But they're all tenants, or they're all prospective tenants on the waiting list, the centralized waiting list through the city.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions on the performance measures from directors?
Sorry.
Okay, we'll go, Councillor Cheng, we'll go with Councillor Doug, or Director Douglas, because she's got to leave shortly. Go ahead, Debbie.
Yes, thanks for that, and thanks for flagging that. I knew there was a question I wanted to ask Nadia. Thanks for raising it, John. Nadia, are refugee claimants included in the rapid transfer program? Do you know?
So through the chair, I don't know that information offhand. I don't know. Richard, do we have context on that?
I'm sorry, if you could repeat the question, I'm sorry.
The city has a number of housing units for, shelter units for refugee claimants. I'm wondering if they are included in your rapid transfer program.
Through the chair, if they are currently residing within the city shelters and they've completed an access to housing application, they may be considered for this program. A requirement would be additional supports.
Thank you. I'll follow up to check. Thanks.
Councillor Cheng, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm just wondering, is it true that the rapid rehousing initiative is mostly housing those who are unhoused or precariously housed?
So through the chair, just to clarify, when you say, I heard precariously housed, what was the first term you used, Councillor Cheng?
Oh, unhoused.
So through the chair, we are working with the city to identify prospective tenants that come through the rapid rehousing program. We do have individuals that are connected to the shelter system, some of which might be actively engaging with the shelter system or potentially historically unhoused, but there are individuals who have experienced varying levels of homelessness.
And in the situations where they land in TCHC buildings, are they getting the supports that they need to integrate into the housing?
So through the chair, the rapid rehousing program is slightly different than the rapid housing initiative, which is the bills on the land. So I'll speak to the rapid rehousing program. All of the tenants that come into our system are connected or come with services. So there's 1 year worth of agency third-party services. We also have an internal TCHC staff team that support the transition for the tenants, and we work to connect them to ongoing resources beyond the 1 year of support that the city and partners provide.
And is there any data that's tracking the outcomes of those who are being rapidly housed, just so that we can see what the outcomes are and the impacts, as well as the benefits to those who are being housed?
So through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Cheng. Absolutely. At this stage, we are looking at eviction rates for rapid rehousing tenants versus the general tenant population. We are seeing no higher eviction rates for rapid rehousing tenants. We are starting to track internally tenants as they move through the system and access services. We don't have that information readily available, but that's one of the areas we're looking at in terms of the impact and whether there's additional resources required to support that tenancy once they become a TCHC tenant. So now that we're working in our home system to establish flags, we can start to identify where some of the challenges may potentially be and what additional supports we can proactively put in place. So we're hoping to have at least a higher level evaluation report before the end of the year, but that is an area that we're focusing on this year.
Great. And these percentages, do they include referrals into Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, or is this only for TCHC?
So in the report, it refers specifically to TCHC, but our overall number for the year included Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation. So they have
Okay.
a percentage, and we have a percentage, and we have the significant amount, a more significant amount than seniors housing.
Right. I just want to flag that a situation happened in a community in my neighborhood where someone was referred and resulted in, unfortunately, the assault of one of the seniors in the building. And it took a few months to deal with it. And so that resulted in other assaults. So I am concerned that if the response is not immediate, that we're exposing other vulnerable communities to risks if the newly rapidly housed tenants are not supported in a way that prevents this from happening. So I just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, so we don't need to approve each individual item. We can just approve the whole number 6 at the end, correct?
Certainly, we can take that approach and
Yeah.
deal with that motion as applying to all of the various items
Yeah, okay.
under item 6.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the tenant's complaint update, and we have a deputant. I saw that he had wandered into the room, and now he's wandered out. Okay, well, you know what? We'll just come back to Miguel when he comes back into the room. And on the rest of the items here, directors, we have the tenant's complaint update, the tenant engagement refresh update, the annual pest control report, and the parking strategy report. Oh, well, we have a deputy on the annual pest control report, so why don't we right, but Miguel's not here for C and D. Oh, there he is. Miguel, you're up. Good morning. How are you? We understand you would like to make a deputation on the tenant's complaint update. Please. Let me know when you're ready. Ready?
Ready to go.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Greetings from Regent Park. Hello, hola. I'm here to speak briefly on this particular conflicting item, the tenant's complaint process. Trust me, it's not something that we enjoy doing it. We'd rather prefer to avoid it, use diplomacy, use other alternatives, ways like conflict resolution, mediation. As a long-time activist, dealing with so many groups, grassroots groups that are difficult to deal with, my best advice is that TCHC has to create some kind of mechanism to address conflict when it arises. Because, you know, it's always known as the elephant in the room, and we don't know how to deal with it, honestly. And when you allow it to happen, because we pretend, you know, we use the analogy, don't see, monkey don't speak, monkey don't talk. That is wrong. And we got to do something about it, honestly. And also, I'd like to mention a bit on the Ombudsman report on human rights. You know, it's...
We'd like you just to, Miguel, please just stick to the tenant's complaints update for now, and you can also talk about the tenant engagement refresh if you like.
Tenant's complaint.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a challenge for me to get some decent sleep in my building. I like to be honest with you. I'm glad I have been able to have coping mechanisms, I have mental health. So I'm speaking on the item, correct? I did try this mechanism, and I'm surprised to know that this April 2023, the number of complaints are reduced to 73 or 71 compared to last year. Could be considered to be positive that the complaining process is working. But, you know, what is the outcome of that process? You know, hopefully, as I mentioned to you, the process of dealing with conflict and resolution will address some of those interpersonal issues that, arises between tenants versus tenants. Sometimes it's management versus tenants. Sometimes, other powers. So speaking to the acting again, former councilor, chairman person, we got to, keep doing better. That's all I will end my deputation to, congratulate to the staff for making an effort to address these issues, complaining among, TCHC's residents and staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. Are there any questions of the deputant? Are there any questions to staff on the tenant's complaint update and the trends? Councillor Chang.
Thank you. I just have a question about the antisocial behavior piece. Is that, does that include people who have mental health challenges that are, I guess, resulting in conflict?
So through the chair, there are a variety of driving factors for complaints related to antisocial behavior. There are times where we do identify that the complainant is identifying a challenging situation for a neighbor, and we do intervene and connect said individual to services. It's not always connected to mental health, but there are times where it is.
And what happens when there is repetitive bullying behavior? Because I've heard this in the community that I previously served, that there were just certain tenants that antagonized many tenants, but somehow they would stay, and it created a lot of tension and stress for everyone in the community.
So through the chair, we do have a tenancy management process. We work closely with our community safety unit to document tenants that might be potentially a risk to other tenants and staff. And we have a progressive escalation process. And if the tenant is not able to get into compliance with the expected behaviors, we do proceed to eviction, specifically around antisocial issues. So we do work with our legal department and other divisions to ensure that we're effectively documenting tenancies as they move through the system to ensure that if an eviction is required, we can pursue that.
I think the challenge is sometimes the tenants are actually also parents with children. So it's very hard to evict somebody who has children because of the impact that would have on kids. So what happens if somebody is a parent and is also in a process that is working towards eviction? What happens to a family like that?
So through the chair, one of our goals, certainly in operations and TCHC as a whole, is eviction prevention, working with OACH and other partners to ensure that we keep as many tenants housed as possible. We also recognize that if a tenant is disproportionately impacting the reasonable enjoyment of their neighbors, we do have to pursue. We have on occasion had to evict tenants for antisocial behavior, even with children. We do work for what we call a soft landing, so connecting that tenant to adequate supports and resources and services, and working with the city if there's a potential shelter to support that family. But before something like that would happen with children, we make every effort. So it happens very, very infrequently. And in the situations where they do, every effort is made to connect the family to services, particularly the young people.
Thank you. I think this really illustrates that TCHC is not just a landlord. We're supporting a very sometimes complex population with complex needs, and the resources and capacity that our staff have to be able to create soft landings and address the needs of not just tenants, but their children as well. So thank you for your answers. It really helps me understand better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The next item is the tenant engagement refresh update, and we have a deputy, Miguel. So this is on the tenant engagement refresh. all the steps that are being taken there to engage with tenants. And you have a deputation, and you may start.
Yes, again, good morning. Here to speak on item 6D, tenant engagement refresh update. So yes, I'm happy to say that I attended the Tenant Advisory Committee session orientation meetings and it was really informative for so many tenants to be aware how their living experiences is valued as they seek our advice and they seek our input, they seek our knowledge and all the experience we have accumulated since the days many of us started speaking here at these committees and boards and commissions and arenas. So looking forward for the result of the tenant action tables. Also some improvements needs to be made, particularly when we meet TCHC buildings that have hub service model incorporated. Perhaps access to Wi-Fi will be wonderful to have. I think it's something I mentioned at the last meeting, 150 River Street. So perhaps, this availability of the password, because, we wear many hats. I'm a Regent Park also neighborhood association member. I had to submit some notes and the lack of availability to have Wi-Fi access, is an inconvenience. So I look forward for that improvement. Also, in regards to photographs being taken, videos of the meetings, I am a digital creator, as you know, in social media. I like to post good stuff, related to community engagement. We have a jam security session. Regent Park was well attended. Hold on a second. So here's my badge. I am the new community animator for Regent Park, as you can see. So I am very, very committed to help to survey my community and get their input, their feedback in relation to phases 4 and 5, the investment of the $26.8 million. And the rezoning is coming up. We're going to see each other next week, by the way, with the rezoning. So I look forward for that conversation. Other things I want to say about the tenant refreshment update. Well, at 220 Oak, I would like to see maybe one day have an office for our tenant committee building so that we can, have access to computer, laptop, Wi-Fi, a printer, and a table, and so have a mini office so we can engage with the tenants. One of the things we want to create moving forward is a welcoming committee so that they'll learn how things work in the building. Sometimes we are left, they get dumped by social agencies in the building and they're not connected with the residents in the building. So I'm willing and helpful to share this information because it will alleviate some of the conflict that we have in the buildings. As Councilor Lily Chang, mentioned bullying, et cetera, et cetera. I'm also willing to help out the youth. I have so much experience and knowledge. I'm a city builder, and we want to incorporate the youth. And really, I look for the opportunity for them to have some kind of stipend, honorarium, because we lack capacity building. And some of the building committees, we don't know how to take notes, for instance, the minutes. So it's a tiresome work, and my community services coordinator is doing her best work, and I myself, but it's a lot of work. Maybe we can allocate some funding through the social development plan, and we can hire some youth, and and that's a way to incorporate them, because many times, ask the youth, why don't you participate? Well, what is in for me, or what can I get from this? So there's more than just money. Perhaps experience and knowledge, I'm willing to help a youth who's willing to become one day a leader and come to this room.
Beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for your deputation. You already are a leader, Miguel. Any questions of staff on the tenant engagement? None from the directors? Okay, next item is the annual pest control report. And we have Ms. Wilkinson. Is she online or coming online to make her deputation? Oh, there she is. Hello again, Catherine.
Hello.
So we're all set?
You know, right, you'd probably be surprised if I didn't speak on this issue.
I'd be
But
shocked.
we're handling it so well, there's gonna come a time where I won't. So one of the things I wanted to identify is that, you know, treating pests in our communities comes at a significant cost. And it may be helpful for the directors to understand the cost of providing these services for tenants. One of the biggest challenges I think that our tenants face is they're really not well informed about the types of pests that may be in our buildings and the importance that they need to report them in a timely manner. At a previous meeting, I had suggested Toronto Housing create a permanent tenant-friendly poster in our community about pest management that would be proactive and encourage tenants to, you know, report on pests and how the landlord would work with them. It seemed to be well received. I also suggested educational information be available on the pests on our website. The only pest control I actually found on the website was under maintenance requests. It was very brief. So there continues to be significant stigma attached to bed bugs, and for this reason, you know, people don't really talk about it. The environmental health group was educating tenants in high needs buildings previously, about 10 buildings per year. It's going to take an awful long time to educate our tenants. So I do think, and I do agree that increased proactive education would be beneficial portfolio-wide. The landlord plays an important role in educating tenants about pests before they get them, and what tenants can do if they get them, and understand what the landlord would do to help them eradicate them. I don't see an indication on the types of support offered to these vulnerable tenants beyond physical support to prep. And as many of us know, bed bugs can have a significant psychological impact on tenants' lives that can lead to longer-term mental health issues. The original pest control strategy included provision of plastic mattress bags in all buildings to be given to tenants upon request. It's just disappeared. It's not understood. You know, with the changes in staff and the new hires, some may not be aware of this requirement to have a supply of mattress bags readily available, where some superintendents just refuse to provide them. This is not helpful. You know, with Toronto Housing providing these plastic mattress bags in bulk, you know, from their preferred vendor, these bags cost like a couple of dollars. This encourages tenants to use them after treatment to protect their mattress, or in the worst case scenario, to dispose of it. These bags can be used to safely wrap and dispose of furnishings, minimizing the spread of bed bugs in common areas like hallways and our elevators. As some of you know, managing and preventing bed bugs remains of significant interest to me. And I continue to provide community bed bug presentations to tenants across the portfolio in communities upon request. And this includes information on steps they can take to prevent an infestation and how to manage one. So this is a partnership, and I actually asked the tenants, you know, yes, there's things the landlord can do for you, but what can tenants do to help themselves? Because they can. You know, providing reactive how to prep for treatment materials after tenant has pests is not enough. I'm pleased we're doing a refresh on this program, and that is focused expert approach to pest control. This is precisely what we need. And site staff will benefit from additional training in this area, as they cannot support tenants if they are not knowledgeable about the issue themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Any questions of the deputant? Okay, I can't see the screen. I only see Cap. There we go. Any questions of the deputant? No? Okay. Questions of staff? Any questions of staff by the directors? No? I have a question. So What is the pest situation in our new buildings? Are pests prevalent in some of the new revitalization buildings?
So through the chair, I will speak generally and then throw it to our senior director, Richard Grosch, to speak to it in more detail. But my understanding is newer buildings have less pests. It's not to say they have no pests. We still have to do treatments in particular locations. But on a whole, I believe that the trend is that they have less pest control issues. So Richard, maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, through the chair, we do experience pest incidents in our newer construction. The difference between our newer construction and our older buildings is typically it's much easier and we're much more successful in containing an infestation. So we're able to limit reinfestation issues just by tighter structures.
And so the pest situation doesn't ever seem to improve. I mean, I've been looking at these numbers for quite a while. Is there a process under which we can improve, or is it always going to be here at these levels?
Through the chair, it's reasonable to expect that pest incidents or pest presence will continue to happen in our buildings. That being said, we do recognize there's a lot of different areas to improve. Primarily around the recovery from the pandemic, we have seen increases in pest activity due to our limitations through the pandemic, in much need to return to our pre-pandemic strategies, further engagement of our communities, more engagement of our staff and education, and the continuation of block treatments and proactive inspections in our buildings.
So this is on table 2, that's a detailing of pest treatments that we did. And it looks like, the number of treatments overall seems to have gone up between the year of the pandemic, 2020, and then 2022. So we're doing more treatments. Why is the problem gotten worse because treatments were sort of held off in 2020?
So through the chair, there's a couple things there. Number one, we were required during the pandemic and the different lockdowns. It was difficult for us to ask tenants to vacate their homes for a minimum of 4 to 6 hours while treatments happened. So we did modify how we deliver treatments to try and do it with tenants in place. Obviously, that has significant limitations from a legislative perspective. We also limited the surrounding units and the inspections and tenant disruption. Additional to that, I will flag also that the 2021 to 2022 is disproportionate in the fact that we did bring in 12,000 units from contract manage, and they would be subject to this program starting in 2022.
Right, of course, thank you. Okay, next item, no questions from...
Hang on, I have one question.
Great, Marcel, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so just regards to the bed bugs. So as a tenant, what can I do in my unit to prevent them from spreading over here? Is there like something that I could do?
Yeah, through the chair, there is a number of different things that tenants can do to help support themselves. Number one, they can request that preventative treatments do take place in their unit. That's once on an annual basis. That's typically a dusting agent that goes inside the structural walls. Addition to that, limit the amount of contents that are around adjoining walls, and be proactive in monitoring, use mattress encasements.
Anything? Yeah, so you mentioned an annual preventative maintenance check or process. Do tenants know that that's available?
Through the chair, that is part of our pest management strategy, and we did educate that on in a pre-pandemic world when we were doing a lot more tenant interaction in the communities, and that is a key element to the program refresh in 2023.
And are we planning to, make tenants aware again that that's available? We are.
Through the chair, the materials are documented and ready to go, and it does include that element. We are also looking at full building preventative treatments in some circumstances where we're seeing higher than average fluctuation in pest activity. So in some cases, we're doing full building applications.
Great, thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions, we'll move on to 6. Oh, Councillor Chang, yes. I can see both hands up. There we go. You're on mute, I think, Lily.
Sorry, thank you.
you
Just
go.
wondering, when we report on this, does it include the Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation, or is it, are they dealing with their own pests?
Through the chair, TCHC does deliver a shared service to the Seniors Housing Corporation. That's the delivery of the physical contracts, the vendors. So we do a shared procurement, shared vendor management activities. But these numbers that you're seeing within this report are specific to TCHC.
Great, thank you.
And then 6F is the parking strategy report, and Catherine Wilkinson has some comments on that.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yep, we do. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, excellent. I just wanted to say to Director Marcel, I'd be happy to help you with some additional tips if you'd like to reach out to me offline regarding bed bugs. So the parking strategy report, in the previous TSC meeting on page 4, the minutes specifically indicated, as was raised by one of the directors, to explore the possibility of limiting the number of parking spaces issued to a household that has multiple vehicles. I didn't really see that covered in the report. Maybe I missed it, or maybe you're still looking into it. And I think one of the biggest complaints we hear is not just a lack of response when you call about a parking issue, but in the majority of cases, it's a lack of a timely response to parking issues in our community. You make the call and 3 hours later, somebody comes by. Well, the issue has now resolved itself, if in fact anybody comes by. So Toronto Housing previously had designated parking enforcement officers, and it doesn't really indicate how many dedicated parking enforcement officers are there. And in addition, now that special constables can also issue tickets, you know, some sort of an indication of how many tickets are being issued and whether or not there is actual vehicle towing taking place. So tenants are not aware that Toronto Police Services or Toronto Police Parking Enforcement can issue tickets on our properties. I mean, it makes sense, but I would bet my bottom dollar if a tenant contacted Toronto Police Services about a parking issue, they would be immediately redirected to take it up with the community safety unit. So, you know, tenants are required to show proof of ownership and insurance upon registering their vehicle prior to being provided with a parking sticker. The current parking system requires tenants to return that sticker when they're changing vehicles, and failure to do so results in a $25 tenant chargeback fee. So this 2-inch window sticker is impossible to remove from your windshield in one piece. So tenants end up scraping it off with a scraper and putting some crumbs of paper together, and that is what they turn into the office to avoid that $25 tenant chargeback fee. It's not possible, of course, to return a windshield sticker when the vehicle has been towed and written off due to an accident, or it's been sold. How do you get that little sticker back? So I hope we're going to revisit that. And the safety unit is actually able to identify a tenant vehicle by this windshield barcode sticker. And they're also able to identify whether the vehicle is roadworthy and insured by the date of the license plate sticker. This brings me to, as we all know, the provincial cancellation of renewal of license plate stickers. This impacts the safety unit's ability to visually identify if a vehicle parked on our properties is roadworthy and insured. So I understand there's a new parking validation system in the works. It would be helpful to know what that entails, how that will impact tenants in parking arrears, the implementation timelines, and the tenant communication plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Any questions of the deputant? Okay, seeing none. Any questions on the item? Any questions of staff? I can't see Councillor Chang. Is she? Okay. All right. So that concludes the agenda, and we'll just ask for a motion. Oh, sorry. We need a motion to receive all of the information on the Chief Operating Officer's report. Who would like to move that? Moved by Uba. All in favor? Great. Thank you. And then a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Chang. All in favor? Great.
Just gonna, and John, I just want to say to Nadia and Richard Grove, congratulations on reducing the vacancy rate. Good job.
Great.
Thank you.
That's heard. Thank you. Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you very much.